two very, very significant thoughts across this article. One is about the linearity. Now in our Western intellectual conception, there is always this problem of linearity. Succession, one following the other, event following event. And therefore we have this chain of cause and effect relationships. It's very difficult to break in the human consciousness, that every result must have a cause, everything must have a result. And perhaps because I was influenced considerably by Western intellectualism in my youth, I had this problem too when Babuji once told me that there can be causes without effects and effects without causes. It's very difficult to understand this, that you can have an effect without a cause or a cause without an effect. So, you see, we have so many bondages under which we are struggling. The physical bondages, of course, that you cannot break free very easily from the limitations of the body. Limitations in the sense that a cripple will remain a cripple. An idiot most often remains an idiot. A strong man remains a strong man, more or less, unless he debilitates himself by bad living habits. A thin fellow remains thin, a fat man most often remains fat. All that you can do is to change your weight by a few pounds here and there. You can hardly raise your height or lower your height. Raising, yes, I don't think you can ever shorten it by any technique. Age does tend to shorten you because then between the bones, the flesh wears off. So physical limitations cannot be changed. Now, most of the time we waste, especially in the West, in trying to overcome physical barriers. Learning mountaineering, going skiing, scuba diving. Waste of effort. Waste of effort in this sense that nothing we do is going to make us supermen or superwomen. Not in the physical world, at least. If it is for pleasure, it is still a waste of time. Because the purpose of life is not pleasure. So what are we wasting our time for? Body beautiful? Well, we have enough of it in a natural sense, by sane living, good living habits. I know many people who go to Hatha Yoga schools just because it makes them think they are becoming more beautiful. And why should anybody be more beautiful? I don't know than what nature made you. As they say, beauty is a concept. You say, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, not so much in what you think you are, but in what somebody else thinks you are. Isn't it? You may think you are very beautiful, another person may think you are very ugly. So what is beauty? So in all these in a field of relative ideas, relative existence, a man who is 6'3" will call a 6'4" short. And the same man, a 5'6" man, will call a giant, you see. So, our assessment of the physical world depends on what we are. I remember when I used to be in school, it was an English school in Jabalpur, a place called Jabalpur in central India, Christchurch boys' school. And it used to be vast to me in those days. I joined the school when I was, I think, probably 8. And left it after I finished my Cambridge School Certificate examination. It used to look enormous. We had a football field, we had a hockey field, we had a cricket field, goal posts all over the place, nets, we had a separate resident hostel, we had school buildings, and we had the office, of course. And I remember the principal's cane hanging on a wall. Very intimidating. When you entered, you saw the cane first, not the principal. No, the funny thing is, I left that school in 1943. I revisited it I think in 1981 or 80, 37 years later, and it looked like a toy house. The buildings were the same, the fields were the same. But when I went, it was so tiny. The principal's room was probably 8 by 8, and it used to look enormous when we were students. Now when I went, you could blow it off. And the school buildings looked outrageously small. See how our perspective changes with our growth. Now when you try to hold on to a reality which you think is the only reality, that the body is the only reality, that skiing is the reality, or scuba diving or mountaineering, you are preventing growth by holding on to a reality which you think is the only reality. Whereas the truth about reality is that reality changes as we grow. Reality, I always like this example of the mirror. What is my face? Well, when you look into a mirror as a baby, you see your face. When you look into it as a girl, you still see your face. When you look into it as a woman, you still see your own face. As an old woman, you still see your own face. But it is all the time changing. Isn't it? No, it's not the mirror which is changing. It's me who is changing. Similarly, it is said in philosophy that the universe is a mirror. And what we see in that wonderful mirror is what we have here. You see power there because you have power here. The idea of power, the concept of power, the need for power. If you have beauty in your soul, you perceive beauty outside. I mean, it's a very common thing that when you are sad, let us say somebody dies and you are very sad, the whole world looks miserable. Everything looks dark. When you are happy, the whole world seems to be dancing around you. You see how subjective our universe is. No, the truth is when something is subjective, it is no longer the universe. It is my experience of the universe conditioned by my experience of myself at that moment. It cannot be reality. It is like getting into a train and also trying to hold fast to somebody on the platform or to a post on the platform. You will be torn apart when the train starts moving. This is what is happening to us. We are holding on to a fixed idea of reality that we have accepted, and we are trying to move towards the direction of finding the ultimate reality. So I am holding on to two things. One is fixed, one is moving. Either I have to let go of the ultimate reality and stick to what I think is reality, or let go of this and go towards ultimate reality. And if I want to hold on to both vehemently, and I am strong enough to do it, I will just be torn apart. No, the extreme cases of this being torn apart, are in the mental asylums. The paranoid schizophrenics, who have an inner reality which cannot cope with an outer reality. The problem, the lack of inner strength, conviction, purpose, eventually puts them into that underworld of mental breakdown, where all conception of reality is lost. Now their only reality is the reality that they seem to face themselves. At a very superficial level, we have our own normal human existence where we are not able to cope. On one side we have ideals, on the other side we have pressing needs. Which is which? Should I stick to ideals or should I grab that which is in my hand? The bird in hand is worth two in the bush. Or rather, this suggestion that Sister Ross gave us beautiful, this idea of linearity, it's a most frustrating and, restricting idea that the West has imposed on itself, on its people. And therefore we suffer. No, it's all right to say a particle moves in linear fashion. or a train moves linearly, or a plane flies in a linear fashion. But we don't grow in that fashion. When you blow up a balloon, it does not grow linearly. It expands in all the three dimensions of space at the same time. No, that's a physical object, a balloon, like a brinjal growing on a plant or a tomato growing on a plant. It has a three-dimensional growth. But we are talking of our growth of the inner soul, the soul that is embodied in us. It does not grow in three dimensions of space because it has no space dimension in which it exists. Then in what dimension does it grow? No, here comes the second problem. See, that we are always thinking of growth in terms of space dimensions. Bigger and bigger. In the extremely, shall we say, exaggerated example of this is the American style of living. Everything must be bigger, everything must be grander. They have lost sense of quality, only size. The bigger the orange, the better it must be. The bigger the tomato, the better it must be. So, in some way, the American psyche accepts growth as a physical three-dimensional growth. But what about the rest of it? What about the other dimensions? The time dimension, for instance, the fourth, perhaps the fifth and the sixth, because Hindu philosophy speaks of 6 dimensions. The time dimension is part of all physical growth, in organic growth. When a tomato grows, it's also growing in time. From the day it appeared on the plant as a tiny bud to the time when it is fully ripe to be plucked. So along with the 3 dimensions of space, there's a 4th dimension of time. So how can this possibly be linear? Now when we come to ourselves, we are to grow in a 5th and a 6th. Mathematics speaks of n dimensions, but that is only a possibility. With a very low, with almost nil probability. That is playing with the intellect. But mystics have seen that there are 6 dimensions to existence. And unless we are willing to grow in all these dimensions simultaneously. No, the physical 3-dimensional growth stops with our reaching our adult development at some stage. It is inevitable. We have very little control over it. Better feeding, better nourishment. You perhaps reach the peak of your physical growth, but you cannot exceed it. Then when we try to exceed it, we make this foolish pretense of living in a physically oriented, exaggerated world. More and more exercise with less and less benefits. I used to do physical exercise for 2 or 3 years in a gymnasium in my university. I was very short. I was 4'11" in height and weighed 88 pounds, and everybody used to make fun of me and kick me around a bit. It's always happening. So my father suggested I should go to a gym. No, I was too shy, so he took me along. He had to also participate for 2-3 months before he dropped off, because by then I was stable in that practice. In the first year, I shot up from 4'11" to 6 feet, or 5'10", and from 88 pounds to 144 pounds. But after that, I used to measure my muscles and all that. I had a very Romanesque figure. I had a very muscular body in the world.
How old were you?
I was 18. That beyond that you cannot do it. If I do it now, what will I do? Nothing. What I'm coming to, from probably 10.5 inch biceps, I came to 15.5 inch biceps in no time at all, just 1 year. In fact, I got the first prize for the best physical development in that year. It was a recognized gymnasium in Calcutta, the Bajrang Vyayam Ghar in Baliganj. But after that, to get 1/10 of an inch increase in biceps, it was Herculean labor. The theory of, in economics, they have the marginal theory of decreasing returns. You put in more and more effort to get less and less returns. This law begins to operate. Then what is the fun in going on? You see, from 1 hour exercising to 2 hours. I had a friend, a classmate, who used to work out 8 hours a day. And half the spent time, he spent before the mirror, with his chest and his biceps and oiling them to get a better reflection. This is patently ridiculous. He was missing out on the intellectual development that was possible in college, and he never made it. He ended up with a beautiful body, which perhaps lasted him a few years more, because inevitably age comes along, you see. And I found one thing, people who do these strenuous physical exercise, the moment they stop it, they go to seed. Otherwise they have to keep it up all their lives. No, that means you're on a windmill sort of thing, going round and round and round and round and round, you can never get off. It becomes one of those horrors, like climbing up 2 steps, getting back 3 steps, climbing up, slipping back. So here again comes this linearity. So you see, if I pursue one dimension of existence, it becomes a linear existence in that dimension. And law of physics tells us, well, it may appear to you linear, but it's really circular. You see, it comes back. So we are inevitably coming back to the starting point all over again. So this thought, it's very fundamentally important for people who are involved in spiritual practice. That don't restrict your aims and objectives to one dimension, whatever it be, you see. If it is intellect, if you think only intellectual knowledge is going to give you what it takes, what it needs, you are going to be frustrated. If it is only the physical, no use. In which dimension is growth in every way assured, is only the spiritual growth. Because at each appropriate stage, the lower development is taken care of. The body develops, the mind develops beyond that, the soul develops beyond that. Like a seed becomes a sapling and becomes a tree and it becomes branches and leaves, what have you. It is an ordered, progressive, organic growth spreading out into all the dimensions of existence simultaneously. There was one other thought I found very attractive that I missed it in all this rambling around. This idea of separateness and the union, you see. The paradox in the spiritual development is that the apparent difficulty between separateness and union undergoes further and further transformation. This is also a very intriguing aspect, that either we are able to be separate or we are able to be together in our normal human existence. Either we are friends or we are enemies. Isn't it? Now, what should be the relationship between the master and the disciple? I think a classic example we find in the life of Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda. He was an educated, for his time, he was one of the elite. He was well educated, he was a graduate of the university, brought up in a good family, perhaps a little Western influence too. Always questioning everything. Intellectual questioning, not in the other ways, perhaps a little proud, a little arrogant. And one day he landed up at Ramakrishna's, his master's place. And Ramakrishna was like our Babuji, very simple, with a dhoti, nothing perhaps on his upper body, always in a mystic condition, saying things which few people understood. And when this boy came, Ramakrishna went into an ecstasy. He said, "My son, where have you been? I've been waiting for you for years and years and years. My eyes have been watering with longing. My heart has been bursting with longing. I'm waiting for you. Where were you?" And this boy of 18 or 19, educated in the Western way, separateness, independence, not liking to be touched. Ramakrishna
hugged him and fondled him, wanted to feed him with his own hands. Vivekananda was revolted, you see. He said, this fellow they call a saint, you see, is maudlin and blubbering all over me. He left. He couldn't stand it, you see. After 23 days, he comes again. This man is in more ecstasy. He thought this fellow will never come again. I have lost him forever. 23 days later, he comes back. Narendra, he used to be called. Again, Ramakrishna wants to hug him, kiss him, fondle him, smooth his brows, feed him. No, Vivekananda is a little, used to this. First time it has happened already. It took him a long time to get over this. And when Ramakrishna praised him, you see, he said, you are one of the Sapta Rishis, the 7 presiding Rishis of this universe, the cosmic, who are eternal. In my vision, I saw that one of them falls off, you see, like a shadow. The eternal presence is there. But it's like in pictures, one body moves out and drops to the earth, and that is Vivekananda. And he says, this man is the master. I am only coming here out of curiosity to see him. Already he says, I am the Saptarishi, one of them. This guy must be mad. There's a severe strain on Vivekananda's intellectuality to accept this man. The heart was longing to accept, the mind was negating it. The intellect was saying, nay, this cannot be the truth. And any of you who have read his biography know what a struggle there was on Vivekananda. And what greater struggle there was on Ramakrishna. You see, here is this promising disciple, the one who is going to spread the message of the Master throughout the world, the one who is going to be one of the shining lights of Indian intellectualism, come mysticism. See, there has been no greater person than him. If at any moment Vivekananda had left, not only Ramakrishna, India would have been poorer for it, because he would have been another clerk in some British government office or in some company earning 100 rupees a month. Isn't it? It was the severest tension for Vivekananda. One, his intellectual tradition, his intellectual pattern of living under some of the most leading Bengali intellectuals of those days. The other, this totally foolish, stupid mystic as he thought him to be, but yet who was pulling his heart out of him. See, this man pulling his heart, society and his Bengali crowd pulling out his intellect. There was again this tension tearing the man apart. So this is what happens to us too. Babuji pulling at our hearts, tugging at our hearts, and our intellectual traditions, whether it be Eastern or Western. No, what can spirituality do for us? Should we not earn our jobs? Should we not be this? Should we not be that? What if the child is sick? Should I meditate? These are intellectual questions. We are having the same problem, perhaps in lesser degree, perhaps in greater degree. If you have read my master, I also had this problem when I first met my master. Tiny fellow, bundle of skin and bones, clad in rags. What could he do for me? See, I had this arrogance that I am big, tall, powerful, strong. And here is this tiny man, It's like the doubts we feel when we see a kayak for the first time. And you are told, get into it, it is stable enough to carry you across. You say, no, I won't trust myself to this. We want a Queen Mary or a Queen Elizabeth to take us across anywhere. We believe in size, not in stability. But we forget that a big liner can sink sooner than a kayak. So, you see, we have to come from this idea of bigness to stableness. What is it that can be stable for me throughout my existence? Is it the body? No. Because the body is, after all, my companion for the nonce. It may be 1 year, it may be 70 years, it may be at most 100 years. The biblical 100 years. Is it my mind? You know how easily the mind can be ruined, spoiled. By bad thinking, wrong thinking in ordinary persons, by drugs, by alcohol, by so many things, disease. So the mind is not a stable companion too. The intellect, well, if the mind itself is not a stable companion, from where on earth is the intellect going to work? So there's a famous Upanishad, you see, which teaches of a disciple, young fellow who goes to the master. And in the Eastern tradition, they don't teach, they allow you to learn. The master tells him, go and sit and meditate and come back. This man meditates for 10, 12 years, and in his meditation it appears to him that food is the ultimate thing. Because by food everything lives, through food everything exists, all are searching for food, it is food which is the problem, to earn it we have to work. So he comes to the master and says, food is the ultimate thing. The master smiles blissfully. You see, this boy is on the first step towards knowledge. He says, yes, my son, but there is something beyond it. Go back and meditate again. And this son of his goes into the jungle, starts meditating again. After further 12 years, he says, what is the use of food if I don't breathe? Food exists in abundance, you see. If I stop breathing, what is the good of all the food? So he says, I have found it, Eureka. Comes back to the master. Master, breath is the ultimate. The master is blissful. He said, yes, my son, wonderful discovery. But yet there is something beyond. So third period of meditation, 12 years more. He comes back and says, the mind. Without the mind, what can exist? It is the mind which tells me where is food, what is food, how to get there. Master is again very pleased. He says, yes, you have made the third grade. No, go back again, you see. Then he comes back with the discovery, it is knowledge. What is the use of a mind if there is no knowledge? If it is deranged. He says, knowledge. The Guru says, wonderful. Go again and do it. Ultimately, he comes back with the final answer up to which he has evolved. He says, it is bliss. Because if I have food, if I am able to breathe, if I have the mind, if I have all the knowledge, but if I have no bliss of existence, what on earth is this existence useful for?
It is that alone for which we seek. It is that which we seek in food, it is that which we seek in physical union, it is that which we seek in success. What is in success except the bliss of achievement of something? I have done it.
There the Upanishad unfortunately stops. But my master, our master, Babuji Maharaj, went beyond, you see. He said, what is beyond peace, what is beyond bliss? There must be something. There cannot be an end in an endless universe. Look for that. Therefore, Sahaj Marg takes up from where the Upanishads left off, the Vedas left off, and goes beyond, you see. Not in the physical, not in the mental, not in the intellectual, not even in the emotional, further beyond. So in the Sahaj Marg tradition, we have this enormously potent, seminal idea, you see, that growth cannot stop at a particular place. In the physical world, yes, a chicken can be so big it cannot grow again. A baby can become an adult and cannot grow beyond that. In the mental world, it is less limited. People can be educated far beyond what they thought was possible or what he himself thinks possible. But there also there are limitations. In the spiritual world, there is no limitation of anything. Anybody can become the ultimate or reach the ultimate stage. No, if you understand these things, you see, we would cease or put a stop to our preoccupation with the physical existence. We would put a stop to even our preoccupations with the mental intellectual existence and seek fulfillment in that existence alone, which assures me an uninterrupted eternal growth towards infinity. No, this is what we are striving for here, what we are trying to become. So these are some very important ideas, and there what is this question of separate and separate, union and separateness? No, we have this funny social problem that either we are together or we are separate. Sometimes we want to be very close, sometimes we don't care to look at another person. It is again a question of being conditioned by inner desires, external circumstances. When we need, we want to be close. When we don't need, we don't care what happens to the other person. What is the norm that should exist in the spiritual world? It is neither oneness nor separateness, but the unity of all existence. It transcends this idea of oneness and separateness, or to be together and to be separate. It goes beyond and it says, when we are all one, where is the question of being separate or of being together? Whether you like it or not, whether you feel it or not, we are parts of one whole. This is what Babuji means when he talks of universal brotherhood. Now we can be brothers who never meet for the next 50 years. Yet when we meet, we are as if we have never parted. Hi Tom, hi Jerry, hi Sis. That intervening period doesn't seem to make any difference to that relationship. When the friendship is very, very intimate, again the intervening gap, even if it is 30, 40 years, doesn't seem to make any difference. No, that is a commonality, you see. Between brothers, it is a commonality of interest, of heritage, that we are born of the same parents. That keeps us together. Among friends, it's friendship. What is it that can keep us eternally together? Without a feeling of separation, without a feeling of having been separated. Even if you are not to meet again in this life, perhaps in the 17th life, in the hereafter, when we may not even recognize each other again. What is it that can hold us together then? Spirituality says love. So you see, we go beyond the boundaries of family, bonds which keep us together, beyond the bonds of emotional togetherness which keeps us together as friends or lovers, to that ultimate oneness where this love permeates through all the fabrics or sections of existence, whether it is mineral, animal, vegetable, human, angels, God, what have you. Now you can pierce linearly only through a straight line. But when you are expanding like this, all bonds are broken. So you see, in one stroke we achieve not only our own personal harmony between the inner and the outer, not only harmony between ourselves and the rest of the universe, not only the harmony between me and my Creator, which is the most important. And how is this harmony achieved? By forgetting that I am there, everything else also exists. By constant remembrance. I remember Him alone. No, towards Him I am going. It is Him I am trying to become. And when that grand explosion into infinity occurs, finally, what is there left but Him? It is like, when we are children, we are asked a question. I used to be asked, and I used to think of it very deeply sometimes, imagining that I am going to be a philosopher. Where does the light go when a candle is put out? And the candle is put out, you see. Where has the light gone? I used to, pretend to be a philosopher, think over this very deeply, neglecting my own studies. I had, at one time, I used to be very fond of Radhakrishnan, Sir S. Radhakrishnan, who was the Oxford professor of philosophy. He used to come to teach us 1 month every year. And in those days, I was very fond of philosophy, and I had dreams of becoming a philosopher like him. C.M. Joad, the English philosopher, was another of my favorites. So these questions used to sort of not only occupy my mind, but obsess me. See? It's like saying, where does life go when a man is dead? Or a woman is dead? Does it go anywhere in the sense that it leaves Wales and goes back to England or to Scotland or to Ireland or to India? Where does the air in a balloon go when the balloon is opened out and deflated? Has it gone anywhere? Or is it still there? What happens to a thought when I forget it? Has it gone somewhere? And when I say I remembered it again, where has it come from? Now when I say I have grown spiritually from that which I was to that which I must become, how has this grown? Where has it grown? Into which dimension it has grown? This was beautifully, initially we think it is some sort of an expansion and in which we encompass the universe. It's also used in even our terminology, Sahaj Marg terminology. That is one way of looking at it. Cosmic consciousness does mean becoming conscious of the cosmos as a whole. Now we are only conscious of it as parts. We can look at one thing at a time. Even the most sophisticated scanning apparatuses go only point by point linearly, you see, line by line by line, like the scripts that we use in writing. They are composite images, not a total holistic image of reality as a one. So when can I have that single vision of the totality of the universe as an integral thing, not as something put together in pieces like a jigsaw puzzle? When I am the cosmos. As this burning bush, the voice from the burning bush answers when Moses says, "Who are you? What shall I tell my people? What shall God be named?" He says, "I am that I am." As Babuji was once asked, "Who is God?" He said, "Who else can be God but God?" Who can be God except God? Or for that matter, who can be Rosalind except Rosalind herself? So what can perceive the cosmos except the cosmos itself? Because then it is no consciousness of parts. Like I say, I am myself. I'm not saying, "Oh no, I know I have a stomach and a liver and the intestines large and small and a heart above them and the spleen behind, 2 kidneys at the back which often give me trouble." We don't make up composite images of ourselves from the units of which we are formulated. My consciousness tells me I am a distinct entity of my own. This persists from childhood, through youth, through middle age, through old age, till death. Who are you? I am Ross. Even when you look at a photograph album and see yourself as a tiny baby and go through all the, various manifestations of your physical personality, the idea that I am I persists right through. What is this miraculous thing which says, this is also me, this is also me, this is also me? It is the consciousness of myself as the self. No, this self, when it expands, I am able to say, this you see in the picture as a human individual is also me. This as you see as a part of the universe is also me. This you see as the whole of the universe is also me. Now who can say this except one who has expanded into the universe and therefore has that consciousness of the universe as an entity, as an individuality, as a distinct existence in itself. Now if you try to learn about the cosmos by putting bits and pieces together, learning a little of astronomy, learning a little of physics, biology, and making a composite organic cum inorganic picture, we only remain scientists at best. But when you attack the problem from the inside and forget these distinct disciplines of science or arts or whatever it be, the humanities, then we perceive growth from the inner values of reality. And then we find it's a different thing. This again spirituality teaches us. You see, go into the inner self of yourself. Don't look at yourself in a mirror. Don't evaluate yourself by your intellectual progress and by the degrees that you get or the Nobel Prize that you're going to win. Don't estimate your prowess by the things that you have produced on canvas or in buildings of stone and steel or even art in marble. Go inside. Go to the roots of yourself, roots of your existence, and see from there where this flowering is going to happen at the end. Therefore, we meditate on the inner self, in the heart, which is the core of being, the core of existence. In the heart, the core of the heart itself, which is that divine spark of divine light, which we are supposed to imagine as meditation, as the object of our meditation. So these are some of the very important and vital, I should say, thoughts, concepts that Ross has brilliantly managed to put in a few sentences in her lecture. I am very pleased and I am very grateful to her. So what I would suggest, sisters and brothers, is we read more and more of the Master's literature and try to penetrate beyond the superficial understanding that we achieve. Sahaj Marg is a universal system. Why? Because we have whites, blacks, Christians, Timbuktuans. It's not universal because we have bits and pieces of each religion and each social structure. It is universal because it approaches the universe as one object which I must understand. Universal love. Oh, Babuji loves all. In what sense? Does it mean he loves Rosalind and Pratima and our Benji here and Dario and his wife individually? It's not possible. And does it mean he does not love when somebody dies here, somebody falls sick there, somebody turns crazy in another family? Oh, Babuji loved me, but how can this happen, child? Does it mean that Babuji does not anymore love me? See, this sort of, shall we say, doubt, perplexity creeps in. What is the meaning of universal love? Again, it can only mean that the love which a universal person has. I don't love my stomach, but I take care of it. I cannot possibly love my spleen. I don't even know where it is. The average man doesn't know he has a spleen. Until something goes wrong, we don't know what's in us. We know we have a heart only when we have a heart attack, most of us. Isn't it? Who knows of his brain? But yet we exist. Everything is working in harmony within us. This overall consciousness of the person as a self, you can say, is in some small way a reflection of the universal love that the Creator must have for the universe that is part of himself and is also outside himself and is also inside himself. It is that which we are trying to achieve. And if, like, we try to parody the Christian love and go around loving thy neighbor as thyself, we may at most learn to love 200 people, 300 people. That too in a very superficial way. When they are sick, we go and nourish them, nurse them, give to the poor a few pence, distribute a few items of clothing in the winter to the needy. I mean, we are not even touching the surface. How much can we achieve like that? Here, what do we achieve? We take an individual up to those levels of existence which transcend misery and bliss, which transcend life and death, sickness and health, because the old spiritual savants, they have said, in the world of duality, where one exists, the other must exist. You cannot possibly do without it. If you have sunlight, it's going to be shadow in another place. The stronger the sunlight, the darker the shadows it casts. At dusk, when the sun is set, you have no sunlight, you have no shadows either. So if you are happy today, well, you are going to be miserable tomorrow. If you are miserable today, there is absolutely every chance you are going to be happy tomorrow too. If it is night now, it is going to be day very soon. Now what are we doing? We are trying to hold on to our existence in this world of dualities and try to hold one and not the other. It's like saying, I will have a stick with only one end to it. Does such a stick exist? Can you have a sheet of paper with only one side to it? You may use only one side. But I don't think anybody will ever produce a sheet of paper with only one side. Or a coin with only one side. Or a stick with only one end. These things are impossible in the world of dualities. Similarly, it is impossible to be only healthy and not sick. Only wise and not foolish. Only rich and not poor. So the wise man says, forget both. Forget riches, forget poverty. We are here neither to be this nor that. Transcend. No health, no sickness. Again transcend. If you are holding on to health, you are equally with the other hand, you are welcoming sickness into yourself. Therefore, we find this very often anomalous truth that when a very healthy man falls sick, he almost instantly dies. Some of these great heavyweight lifters and marathon runners, you find they are finished in no time. Whereas the man who has been always a little sick exists very well. See. Always a little sick, it doesn't matter to him. A little pain here, little headache there, little fever tomorrow. But the exuberantly healthy man is snuffed out like a candle. So this is the philosophic truth, you see, the spiritual truth, that don't hold on to this world of dualities and try to hold one and not the other, because they are part of the same reality. If you have a stick with two ends, you have to carry the stick with two ends wherever you go. It hardly matters which end of the stick you are beaten with. Sometimes the good end of the stick, sometimes the bad end of the stick. You think of one as good and one as bad, but the stick doesn't think so. It is it. So that is another lesson we learn in our spiritual practice. Forget both, go beyond. So that is a dimensional change, not only in thinking and conception, but in orienting our purpose, our efforts. Like a plane flies up in the air. It doesn't go around north and south and east and west. It is now going in a third dimension of space. We have to go into the fourth, into the fifth, into the sixth. So these are the things which I had to say, the seeds of which were sown by Ross's beautiful talk this morning. I invite more of you to speak. Let us have an exchange of ideas, because like a seed remains a seed until it is planted, most of us remain seeds. You don't want to take the risk of coming out into the beautiful earth, penetrating through it into the atmosphere, receiving the glory of the sunlight above, flowering out into something so that we can in turn broadcast our seeds elsewhere. We just want to be what we are, secure in our independence, secure in our closed existence, where we think we are invulnerable. But one who seeks invulnerability is one who is vulnerable. So we must give up these thoughts. Be brave, be bold. I cannot be a bigger fool than I am. Isn't it? So what does it matter if people think me a fool? It is only right that they should. Can I become more of a fool than I am? No. Not at all possible. As I cannot become more wise than I am. No. So what are we seeking in appearances and in possible platitudes from others? Applause from others? It is like looking into a mirror and trying to find a beautiful face there when I know I'm ugly beyond words. The mirror can only show me what I am. And your response to what I say can only be what a mirror can show me if it was a mirror. On the contrary, we should use the audience to teach us, you see, what we lack, where we have gone wrong. Like you use a mirror for makeup, So the mirror helps us to improve our appearance. An audience, when ideally used, should help us to improve our performance. That's what you call feedback. And in that sense, you cannot use it unless you put yourself before. Can you lie in your bed and say, mirror, mirror, tell me what should I do? No answer. So I invite all of you to be a little, it doesn't need courage. It only needs to throw off your shyness and stand up and speak.